What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall market, and also break down some new developments on the charts. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. Deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total. And the offer ends very soon in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, the market is just range bound right now, but we're going to be watching to see some new developments if something big happens. I'll be talking about some big levels to watch for. Just notes that the Apple event has ended and Apple's done a great job at explaining their new products, new things to expect for their new iPhone, their AirPods, and all their new products. So I think it's very, very cool that they did a wonderful job at explaining these new technologies and such. So as a result of that, that led to a lot of volatility in the markets. We saw, basically SPY dipped a little bit, then it got this big pump, then it came back down. We saw Apple do the same thing, and that's what they used as the excuse to kind of pump and dump things. Just know that in terms of data, there's not really much coming out for today, and then for tomorrow, there's not really much to worry about. The next big piece of data is going to be CPI on Wednesday. I'll talk more about that later on. Anyways, so for right now, SPY is in a very, very interesting place. We're trying to hold these EMAs. This is going to be this 544 area. If we hold above these EMAs and break past this resistance, we could be looking for a pushback up to about 547. If we lose the EMAs, we're looking for 543.8, then 542.5. So very tight supports over here in this range. And if we lose that, we're looking for a big dump to fill this gap. So it's very simple what SPY is going to do. I presume that the most likely case is there might be an attempt to rebound that's coming. We're going to be watching to see how this develops. Will SPY end up attempting to rebound like this and then end up failing? In order for us to fail, what you want to see is us kind of break down like this, end up just consolidating, and eventually losing the support to start dumping back down to fill this gap. That's the more like bearish case if we don't end up breaking this high, and if we end up losing supports, we have to lose 542.5 for confirmation. So I want to give you guys a heads up about that, about how in order for us to come down, we need to lose this key support. This is this gap support as well. Now, if you're bullish, okay, you want to see SPY basically continue to hold above 543.8 in this range and eventually start to push back up to this resistance right here. Look at this resistance at 547. If we break the high, I think we go all the way up to 550. So break this high, we go up to 550. Lose this low at 542 and we dump all the way down to fill this gap. Otherwise, we're just completely range bound. What I am seeing is that our buyers trying to defend it at these EMAs. So this might try to help SPY pump a little bit, but otherwise we're just range bound. We'll give this the time it needs and be very, very patient. For other factors out there, we also have Nvda. Nvda is also it's range bound because we like to get rejected near like the 107 zone, and we like to get bought back up around 104, right? We're just going back and forth and back and forth. Now we have this yellow trend line right over here. This is acting as our support, right? We touch this, bounced, touch this, bounced, touch this, bounced, touch this, bounced, over and over and over again. Now, Nvidia, if we end up losing 104, I see this dumping back down towards 102. If we continue to hold this trend line, we are going to be temporarily bullish. We might try to push up for the 107, 108 area where this imbalance happens to be. So right now, I'm noticing that we're just holding this yellow trend line. This is just a short-term trend line from the last 2 days. It's holding this trend line so far. So as long as it holds this, it remains a little bit more bullish. We're also up like 2%. So we're still favoring upside a little bit more on Nvidia unless we lose the trend line. So we'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. Now, ES is also just range bound. We have this important area around 5480's resistance, not to mention 5500. To be bullish, you want to break past 5500. If we hold above 5480 at the very least, I think we're going to be pushing higher. But if we end up losing support right here at 5450, we're going to be looking for a big dump all the way back down. So this support is right over here around this 5450 area. If that fails us, we could be dumping all the way down to about 5425. Otherwise, we're just range bound right now. We're just completely range bound. I say that because when you look at the price action on ES, we dumped, went back up, came down, went back up, came down. It's just going back and forth between these levels. So those are very tradable levels, but I just want to say that for the much bigger move, you'll be watching to see which way we break. For Bitcoin, we are looking more bullish because we dipped a bit only to get a big bounce thanks to some bullish news. We're looking at 57,000 as our resistance. Our main support to watch for is going to be around 55,600. I think we might retest 57,000. If we do try to break this, we're going to be going up to about 57,250. We'll see if we could break it or not, but I do think we're going to be making another attempt to get up there. So watch and see if we end up breaking. For Tesla, Tesla is looking in the middle as well, just like SPY. So Tesla is range bound. We got some good Chinese sales today. However, we're range bound. So if we end up losing the 214s, we come down to fill this gap and we're going to retest this trend line right over here. I think we dipped to about 212. If we end up breaking past 220, we're going to be pushing all the way back up. I'll be watching to see, just like SPY, are we about to do something like this where we come down to this trend line again to fill this gap? Do we end up rejecting here and lose the 214 area to fill this gap all the way down towards this like 210 area, a little bit above that? And then we get a bounce back up from the trend line, forming a double bottom before we try to push back up like this. Is that what Tesla's about to do? Or are we not going to fill the gap for the time being? Are we going to just hold this support and slowly consolidate and start pushing for CPI? Right? It's really hard to tell which way we're going to go, because to me, it just looks like we're range bound. And we have to just wait and see which way we end up breaking in terms of our direction. Otherwise, we're just completely range bound from now. So that's all we're doing for Tesla. We're just range bound. I could see this dip a little bit more into the 215s, but I'm not seeing any sign of it losing critical support. So it remains range bound. For NQ, we're also just range bound. We have this 18,700 areas, our resistance, our support's at 18,500, going back and forth and back and forth. So I presume we're just going to be stuck for now between supply and demand. If we lose 18,500, we're looking for 18,400 as our support. If we break past 18,700, we're going to be looking for a push for 18,850. Otherwise, we're just completely range bound. So give this some time. For the QQQ, we're also range bound. NQ is what's dictating this. If we lose 451, we're looking for a dump back down towards the low into the 448 area. If we break past 455, we're looking for a push. Otherwise, we're just range bound. So give it some time. Apple's also range bound. Why do I say that? Because we like to test 217, then bounce off that. We hit this 2 times, but then even though we bounce, we do get rejected off 220 to 221. So it's just going back and forth and back and forth for now. That's what's dictating the markets. If Apple loses 217, we're going down to at least 215. If we break 221, we're looking for at least 223. Otherwise, we're just range bound. For a few more, we have the Russell. We have 209 as resistance, then 208 as support. We're just kind of stuck within these areas. If we lose the 208 area, we're going to be looking for a dip to fill this gap towards 207. If we break past 209, we're looking for a push. We're just range bound for now. I do see a risk of it dipping, but there's no sign of it losing support yet. So it could dip a little bit, but nothing too crazy. Just like Bitcoin, Coinbase is getting bought back up. We're going to be looking for a test of the high right here at 156 very soon. It's riding this trend line very nicely. As long as we do so, we're going to be bullish, just like Nvidia's trend. If we lose this trend line, we could be dipping back down to about 150, but this is favoring upside right now. Amazon, it's range bound. We have the 173 to 172 areas are support. If we lose this 173-ish zone, we come down to fill the gap towards 170. If we break past 174.5, we could be pushing higher. Otherwise, we're just range bound. So give it some time. We might dip a little bit though. Meta is range bound as well. We have 504 as our support. If we lose that, if we lose 503 as our support, we dip down to fill the gap to 499. Otherwise, we're just range bound on Meta, not really doing much. Microsoft is kind of range bound. As long as we hold 402, we could just continue to be range bound. If we lose 402, we turn bearish to fill the gap down to about 400. And then we have resistance at 404. It's just completely stuck. Google, on the other hand, is more bearish looking. We're barely holding 149. If that fails us, we're going down to 148. And we have 151 as our resistance area. So I would say this is looking kind of weak, favoring downside a little bit more. So that's one of the stocks that has a much more clear direction. With that being said, guys, the market's just stuck right now. I'm honestly not going to trade for the rest of the day, but we'll see how things end up going from here. We're just stuck. So I'll be back in a couple of hours to give you guys another update on how we close and some other factors involving the markets. It is possible the market's trying to reverse, but we'll have to wait and see if we can try to break some key levels. With that being said, thank you for listening. I thank you guys for your attention. I'll see you guys very soon in just a couple of hours. Until then, take care. Trade very, very patiently, and peace out.